So, how long was I sat petrified?
Long enough for the old kingdom to have crumbled, I see. Long enough for Olafis to rise, fall, and fade away, evidently.
The curse is a part of life itself. No one will ever be rid of it. And so there is only one choice: to await a worthy monarch. A monarch who can shoulder your burden, lest this land swallow you whole, as it has so many others.
Are you going to see the old ones? Those 4 who have grown so incredibly ancient. They must have sprouted quite a thick coat of moss by now. For heaven's sake, no one even knows their names anymore. Imagine that.
My memories are fading, oldest first. The curse is doing its work upon me. I am frightened. Terribly so. If everything should fade, what will be left of me?
Have you ever thought about who you are, about what makes you the person you turned out to be? I wouldn't blame you if it wasn't something you wanted to think about. Self-reflection can be a frightening thing. To peer inward and attempt to understand the makeup of your personhood is a daunting task and one many people cannot truly overcome. If I asked you to tell me your very first memory, would you? I know it's a rather intimate question to ask, so let me tell you mine instead. It was my 5th birthday. I remember waking up excited with the knowledge that it was my birthday and feeling as if my life had started right then and there. I have no recollection of anything before that, though I have been told stories of myself as a baby. I can't recall any of what happened in those stories, but other people can, and the events live on in their memories. Isn't that strange? To not remember anything about your life before a certain point. But I don't feel like I've lost anything. They simply feel like they were never mine to begin with. But what if I did lose them? What if I knew that I used to remember these events, but said memories were lost? If I lost something so formative, I think I'd feel like I lost a part of myself. Because who am I but the culmination of my memories and experiences? Who would I be if I lost these pieces of myself? Who would any of us be? Time is what most of us lose our memories to. And in the world of Dark Souls 2, time has indeed passed. Such a vast amount of time has passed, in fact, that nobody remembers the events of the first game. The Chosen Undead, the Lords of the First Flame, the Kingdom of Lordran, these stories have long since faded from all memory, as countless kingdoms have risen and fallen in turn, each of which have been forgotten themselves. The only constant of the world, the only thing that has never changed, is the curse.
You will lose everything. Once branded, the symbol of the curse, an augur of darkness. Your past, your future, your very light. None will have meaning, and you won't even care. By then, you'll be something other than human. A thing that feeds on souls, a hollow.
The curse of the undead is a curse upon the mind and soul. Once afflicted, a person will begin to lose their memories, and through this, their sense of self, until all that remains is a shambling husk, bereft of souls, personality and fate. A hollow in the truest sense. Dark Souls 2 is a game obsessed with memories and legacies, and finding the midpoint wherein the self is located. And to begin to understand what this game has to say, I need you to accept the process of memory and legacy. A person is the culmination of the memories and experiences. Though we are certainly born with certain predispositions, we are ultimately shaped by the life we have lived and the trials we have overcome. Thus, the self is determined by these pieces of our past. fragments assembled together and constructed into the shape of who we are. This shape is what defines us and all things about us. Our personality, our beliefs, and our wants all stem from it, and thus do we act, and our actions impact the world around us. These impacts are our legacy, and they are how others remember us, how the world itself remembers us. Memory leads to self, self leads to legacy. This is the logic of identity, and it is this very logic that the curse erodes away. As memory is lost, the fragments we've been built from fall away, and the mind and soul become unstable. Should the curse progress, you will inevitably lose your very being. Without that sense of self, your ability to leave behind a legacy will be lost as well, and the world itself will forget you. Who you were and what your life was like before you came to Drangleic is a mystery. There was a woman and a child once, but her relation to you is impossible to know. She could have been your mother, your wife, your sister, your friend, but she could have also been nobody, simply the last person your ailing mind recalled before your whole life was lost to the curse. In truth, we cannot and will not find answers, for the memories are gone, and you've come to Drangleic for one reason, to prevent yourself from losing even more. You're not alone in this. All who come to Drangleic seek a cure for the curse of the undead, though not everyone remembers this simple truth. But the desire to live, to protect themselves, is instinctual. That is why, even if they don't recall the reason for it, they all seek souls, one of the few stopgap methods against the harrowing effects of the curse. Mifflin the Armourer and Stone Trader Cloanne are perfect examples of this. Neither can remember why they came in the first place, but both know they need souls. This is, from a story perspective at least, why the majority of the merchants in the game relocate to Majula. Not just because it has become the centre of the world, but because souls are traded there. You return there the most, after all, and you are their best source of souls. Cloanne is an interesting specimen. We can infer from Lenegrast dialogue that she was always somewhat oblivious in nature, but the curse has clearly worsened that aspect of her character. Despite her acknowledgement that Lenegrast resembles her father, and the inordinate amount of time she spends mere feet away from him, she can never seem to make the connection that he is her father. The two also demonstrate an interesting variance in the curse, as despite the fact that her father looks entirely hollowed, he's managed to completely retain his sanity, whereas she looks completely human, but her mind has begun to slip and fracture. But nobody displays the horrible effects of the curse like our tragic companion, Lucatiel of Mira. Lucatiel is the perfect example of how the curse functions, as, should you pursue her quest line, we witness the degradation of her mind and behold her barely contain terror at what it means. When you first meet her, Lucatiel attempts to keep you at a distance, but she eventually warms up to you, offering to assist you in battle, and should you take her up on that offer, she will continue to appear throughout your journey, revealing that she was once a knight from the land of Mira, a position she was not born into but had to fight for. Her honour as a knight is the very core of her being, and what's scary is, starting even in your second conversation with her, she's already losing the pieces around that foundation.
And then I came here to...
Despite her hope of finding a cure, she continues to lose herself with the curse. Her mind is crumbling away and she's fully aware of it. What's more, it terrifies her. This loss of memory, this loss of self. What will she be when everything has left her? Will she even be anything at all?
Sometimes I feel obsessed with this insignificant thing called self. But even so, I am compelled to preserve it. Am I wrong to feel so? Surely you do the same in my shoes.
Eventually, she reaches her breaking point, and amidst her despair, she turns to you, her one friend, with a simple plea. Remember me. Remember that I was here. Remember who I was.
My name is Lucatiel. I beg of you, remember my name, for I may not myself.
I won't lie, this moment, the moment where she gives you her sword and her mask, hurt me. This moment is Lucatiel passing her legacy on to you, so that you might carry her memory on. I'm not ashamed to admit it made me cry a little. We don't just keep memories, however, we are able to view them. Through the power of the Ashen Mistheart, the player is able to enter the memories of the giants, of the ancient dragon, of the old Iron King, and to bring power from them. Vendrick, the now hollowed king of Drangleic, can only be harmed if you possess the souls of the giants he fought, most of which you pull from their memories, conferring the power of their undying grudge to your blade. One might even argue that soul transposition is the art of pulling power from the memories held within a soul. There are, however, legacies that defy the logic of memory, and continue to exert their influence upon the land, despite their being long forgotten. And in fact, it is one such legacy that exists as the source of the curse itself, and of the very sickness that acts to warp the world around us. Though each game is concerned with their own themes, the Dark Souls series as a whole is very much concerned with cycles, and these cycles are at the forefront of Dark Souls 2's story that is way too hard to say. Drangleic is only the most recent kingdom to fall victim to the undead curse, as countless forgotten kingdoms have stood where this kingdom now lies, and the majority of them has fallen into the patterns of behaviour that once consumed Lordran. In Dark Souls, you begin the game in the Undead Asylum, having been removed from your land of origin by those who feared the curse, hoping that quarantining and isolating the undead would stop the spread. This act continues in 2, with undead taken to the Lost Bastille, which I'm pretty sure is supposed to be pronounced Bastille, but we're not here to discuss proper French pronunciation. The undead were gathered up and placed in a faraway prison, out of sight and out of mind, but this did nothing to treat the cause of the curse, and the kingdom still fell. Strayed himself was even banished to the Bastille, ironically leaving him as the only legacy of Olafis, as he's the only one to remember it ever existed. The torment and mistreatment of the undead constantly arises throughout the history of the world, with the old Iron King even having created the Executioner's Chariot to endlessly torture them for little more than the crime of existing at all. This too can be traced back to the beginning. The world keeps repeating a legacy of loss and cruelty that's quickly forgotten, only to rise up again, but that's to be expected when you realise that the land itself is being constantly influenced by the great lords of old. Defeating one of the 4 Great Ones in New Game Plus or higher rewards the player with a second soul, a soul of the ineffable. Though long forgotten, these souls still exert influence on the land. The Old King soul, the Old Witch soul, the Old Pale Drake soul, and the Old Dead One soul. These souls not only influence the land, but attach themselves to those who most resemble their original owners, and are nearly their own form of curse upon the world. Sweet Shalquar, another echo of the former kingdom, hints at this connection herself, and it's through this that we realise that the Lords of Lordran have been forcing their legacy upon the world for a very long time. From the Lost Sinner, not only repeating the Witch of Izalith's mistake, but outright displaying the parasite that is the Chaos Bug.
The Lost Sinner lives deep within the Bastille. The fool, trying to light the first flame.
To the old Iron King, whose cruelty and stubbornness would become his legacy, and who would repeat Gwyn's mistake with his own Age of Fire.
It reminds me of someone who lived long ago. A vainglorious liar who ended up hurling himself into the flames.
To the Rotten, a massed congregation of conjoined bodies that simply wishes to be left alone.
Although who you seek is even further below, and has been down there for a very, very long time. He's plumb rotten by now, I'm sure.
And even a duke consumed by his obsession, just as Seath the Scaleless coveted the immortality he never had.
Oh, it's like that awful traitor long ago. He coveted what he did not have, and it drove him mad. What a curious conundrum. The writhing ruin keeps searching as we speak. Searching for its heart's desire.
But it's not just the legacy of these 4 that continues to haunt the land. The darkness of humanity and the presence of the Abyss remains as well. Though vanquished by the chosen undead in the first game, the legacy of Monas continues to press in upon the kingdoms of man. Of course it does, for is the dark not inherent to human nature? Why should it be separated from us, just because the raging abyss was quelled but one time? Nashandra, Elana, Nadalia, Alsana, 4 dark queens that would seek to exert the influence of the dark upon the rulers of humanity, and even the Dark Lurker, what remains when the 4 are separated from the car. The legacy of Manus continues even now to exert its influence upon the land. The dark returns to us, again and again, called to our lands and our rulers by the legacy of the furtive pygmy and the dark soul they split amongst all of humanity. But as I said, the true origin of the curse stems from the legacy of one person, one frightened and stubborn old man, quaking at the inevitable dark.
Once, the Lord of Light banished dark and all that stemmed from humanity. And men assumed a fleeting form. These are the roots of our world.
The irony of miracles is that they are stories of the gods. They tell of a feat accomplished by one of the gods of Lordran, and the faith of the caster reproduces the effect. But the thing is, there isn't a single miracle in Dark Souls 2 that has the name of the god it's about. I don't believe that Gwyn's name is ever spoken over the many dozens of hours of this game, not even once. Even Aldia, the one person who fully understands the nature of the curse, doesn't seem to know, only referring to him as the Lord of Light. Given the themes we've discussed, you would be well within your rights to assume this meant that Gwyn's legacy was also forgotten, but that couldn't be further from the truth, for his Age of Fire is inextricably bound to the undead curse, which makes the curse of the undead the very legacy Gwyn left behind. It's not just the Lord Souls that seem to parasitize the world, but Gwyn's age itself functions as an eternal and gluttonous leech upon the endless ages, thieving mankind of their memories and, through that, their legacies. Gwyn robbed humans of their rightful place as inheritors of the world, and in doing so, shackled the world to the endless fading and rekindling of his age. His legacy is held aloft, borne upon the broken souls of humanity. Having tied the curse to life itself, Gwyn has ultimately won, hasn't he? What can even be done if his legacy is all that will ever remain? One may suppose that we must simply give in and allow the curse to run its course, burn ourselves or allow another to burn to stave it off once more, until the fire begins to fade once again and the cycle turns another time. There is another option, shown to us by our lost companion. Through her gift to us, we inherit the legacy of Lucatil of Mira, and we carry her strength with us, and it's through the inheritance of strength that our solution is found. Drangleic is not the only kingdom we visit on our journey to overcome the curse. Though we vanquish Nashandra in the Throne of Want, 3 sisters yet remain. 3 fragments of primeval darkness, each attached to the remains of their own kings and kingdoms, and in these kingdoms lie the crowns of the great kings of man. One drowned in poison. In a city that worshipped a great slumbering dragon, you travel to the city, cleanse it of the rotten darkness that remains to infest it, slay the dragon, and acquire the crown of the sunken king. One succumbed to the flame in a vast iron tower built as a monument to his vain glory. You extinguish his creations, purge the curse of solitude that pervades its every corner, and retrieve the crown of the old Iron King. The third slumbers beneath the ice, in a kingdom wreathed in an eternal blizzard, the frigid power of the remaining Queen of Darkness, all that holds back the writhing might of primordial chaos. Its king devoured in his attempt to protect all that he loved. At the behest of his queen, you release him from his role as a puppet of chaos and return with the crown of the Ivory King. 4 crowns in hand, 4 darknesses exorcised from the lands and their souls taken to bolster your strength. You stand as the sole inheritor of the will of mankind, and this power stands to protect you from the legacy of Gwyn. It isn't a cure, for a true cure never existed. This is merely a stopgap, a ward against the effects of the curse. In fact, you may even argue that you've traded the curse of the undead for the curse of responsibility, for now you must find it, the way out, neither flame nor abyss, but a third path, one that may lead the world away from the endless cycle of Gwyn's legacy. It's impossible to say what you will find, what you will ultimately do, but you have what no one else can lay claim to, time and the hope that comes with it. You alone will never be broken by the curse, and as you continue, inheritance in hand, you may yet find a cure, not just for yourself, but for the world as a whole, a way to break the cycle and at last allow humans to retain their sense of self and to leave their own legacy upon the world. Only time will tell, but tell it will, in a land of ash and rising darkness, of pilgrims and the deep and 4 great cinders. But that is a tale for another time.